Hey, we are your hosts, NixMyth.
And Kylie Jo Smith, and here it is. We're just going to put it all out there.
Putting it out.
Everybody's talking about it. You've been talking about it today. Don't act like you haven't been talking about it. You've been talking about it.
You said something.
You said something to somebody.
This week, because we don't know when you're listening to this. It might be today. Might be tomorrow. Might be. You can't listen to it tomorrow if you're listening to it now. You might. Anyway.
So anyway, if you watched last night's Oscars, the Academy Awards.
You already know what happened.
You already know. Even if you didn't watch it at this point, we didn't watch it. Just happened to, we like to catch the highlights because of the nature of our work. We just kind of catch highlights and we then dissect those highlights. And this one highlight has kind of, it's been a slap in the face for some people. And I don't
slap heard around the world.
It really is. And I think we just have a perspective that we want to share. And obviously we are not, I don't expect this to like shift anything as far as all of
the jargon, the stuff
happening.
Well, and we also want to come to it with a little more compassion, a little more understanding biblically about kind of what we're seeing. And so not to over spiritualize everything, because I actually saw a post this morning by someone who was like, what this says about the demonic presence in Hollywood.
Oh boy.
Like, come on, bro. Like we get it. But let's parse it. Let's go in between. Like, let's not go super straight, blame everything on the devil.
For once.
But let's just talk about the people. So, General, if you don't know what happened, at the Academy Awards, Chris Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith. Everybody laughed, except for Jada Pinkett.
Will laughed.
Yeah, and then Jada looked at Will. Will got up and fired on Chris Rock.
He just walked.
I'm not laughing. Hitting people isn't
right
funny.
up onto the stage in his black tie.
Gave him the Dave Chappelle. What did the five fingers say to the face? Slap.
And from that we see, if you watch the clips, you can watch them. We've watched numerous angles and different versions of the clip. After that, Chris Rock turns and he's like, Will Smith just smacked me in the face.
And then Will started yelling.
He walked back to his seat with not even just like unfazed, walked back to his seat, sat down. And everyone's kind of looking like, what is that staged? Because it is a room full of actors,
right? Very
talented actors. And at that point, Will begins to yell some profane.
Keep my wife's name out of your bleeping mouth.
Multiple times. And then Chris Rock says, hey, okay, all right, I will. And then from there, the whole evening was very awkward for everyone.
It's a lot.
Everyone was feeling awkward. Even the speech Will gave when he accepted his Oscar, his well-deserved Oscar for his talent.
Yeah.
In King Richard. It was awkward. It was just everyone just kind of. I felt like I was waiting for him to say the right thing to make it right, and I just kept waiting. I was like, okay, now he's gonna. Okay, all right, that was a great speech moment. Now, okay, no. Yeah, he's going to save it for the end. He's going to save it for right at the end. He's going to say, and lastly, I just have to acknowledge and be humble. He's going to humble himself because it's way better to be humbled than to be humiliated. But he didn't.
No, he didn't apologize to Chris at all. Christopher.
He didn't even acknowledge.
Because we're friends.
Apologies. Like, here's the thing. My buddy, Mr. Rock. But here's the thing. We've talked to our kids about this and our students about this. An apology can be faked. Mm-hmm. Especially on live TV. Like, you're like, I'm so sorry for what I did.
That's how you know.
But it's different when even if you don't really feel sorry, because I can understand him not feeling sorry. Mm-hmm. I did it, and I'm not sorry that I did it, because you know what? You shouldn't have been doing what you did.
Yeah.
But acknowledging that it was wrong and inappropriate would have been a huge step forward.
Yeah.
And would have changed the commentary of today.
Yeah, it would have, because I think the thing that kind of is throwing me off, and we were talking about it a little bit, like, you would expect that everybody would be on the same page that action was wrong. You'd expect that would be the common understanding. Like, hey, you shouldn't get up and hit somebody in the face because you don't like the joke they tell. Like, in general.
A little bit of an overreaction.
Like, you would think that would be the comment. But there are so many people that I've seen on different feeds that are like, you know what? That was well-deserved. And some people are like, he shouldn't have stopped with one hit. And I'm like, hold on. Chill out, first off.
Wait a second.
So, like, I guess it needs to be stated that the action of slapping somebody in the face because you disagree with a joke they made is generally frowned upon, especially at a black tie affair.
Well, and it's immature. Like, this is something that we were talking about, like the appropriateness of the environment. You have to read the room. You have to know who is in your midst and know whether or not this would be an appropriate behavior. And this is something that socially and culturally, we as a people are struggling with this. Like we actually have classes where we have to teach young people how to behave in certain environments, professional environments, going to a spiritual gathering. Why is that different than a professional environment, and how versus
formal, semi-formal
versus a family environment? Like all of these things, you would think, some people would think, oh, well, that's just obvious, you should know. And then others would think you act the same no matter which environment you're in. And if somebody pops off at the mouth, you pop them in the mouth. I don't care if I'm at my Christmas party for the company, or if I'm in my backyard.
Son's bar mitzvah. I'm giving them that business.
Right. And the hard part is, like, you do have to take into consideration your audience.
Yeah.
And who it is that has eyes on you in any given situation. So I think that makes this a little bit more complicated.
It does. So let's get past the general, like, come on, man, like, get it together. You know, you shouldn't have did that. And let's talk about kind of some of the spiritual aspects of it. So the first thing, you never know how much weight is on somebody. You know what I mean? Like, they're at an affair. Like, this is supposed to be the highlight of some people's lives, going to the Oscars.
Yeah.
And this is supposed to be a high point, but for some reason, Will Smith was carrying so much anger in his in his being. There's so much weight, so much pain, that joke and the look from his wife sent him over the edge. Like, that sent him to a place. And I don't mean over the edge. Like, I'm not overreacting. Like, he wasn't out of control. He didn't go up and, like, start shaking him and punching his face in. Like, he hit him one time, but you shouldn't, like, that's still too much. You know what I mean? That's still, like, I'm not trying to make it sound like he bloodied the guy.
Right.
But whatever he was carrying, that one joke sent him to the place of, like, okay, I have to physically do something now in order to gain control over my life in this moment.
Yeah.
Because most acts of physical aggression are us trying in some way, shape, or form to regain some sense of control in a scenario where we feel we're out of control, or where things have been taken beyond our power. Exactly. And so it's exerting your power physically when you can't have that power intellectually or emotionally or whatever. You feel powerless. And so whatever it was in Will's life that made him feel powerless, at that moment, he felt the only option he had was to get up and slap Chris Rock in the face.
And it's crazy because we've seen, I felt like it was so, the reason it was so jarring watching it, and I can't imagine being in the room and actually, or like being like sitting in the vicinity of Will and Jada at that moment to be like, oh my gosh. But we've seen Will, like, in the public eye, because they're celebrities, and celebrities in America very much have this almost royalty status.
Right.
And we've seen him, like, broken down. We've watched him bawl on camera. I mean, not just as a performer, but as an actual, as himself.
Yeah.
Because of things that have hurt him in his marriage.
Yeah.
We've watched things happen between him and his wife that are very, like, dysfunctional and painful, and no one in their marriage would want those things broadcast for the world to judge and for the world to offer their opinion on.
Yeah.
And so we've seen that. Like, we've seen that kind of broken, like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe you would do this to me. And so to see that shift, it really was that, like, oh wow, this is a little bit, obviously there's more to it than any of us have seen from this side. But it's that I think it was your cousin had shared a really good analogy of the tip of the iceberg. You know, when what you see on the surface really is just a small piece of what someone has been carrying. And icebergs, like, take time to form. This isn't, oh, he got mad and there was no history, there was no, like, baggage behind it. It's like, okay, after so many times of being the person that everyone's laughing at, after so many times of being the meme, of being the gif, okay, I'm done. We're done talking now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that, like, culturally even, and you had said this, like, there's a certain point where words no longer have the effect that we want in order to get what we're trying to get out of the situation.
Yeah, and I think for me, and we had this conversation last night, because when you see it and you're like riled up, like, no, this shouldn't have. I wouldn't. I wish I could have. And one of the things that I stressed, and my wife had to be like, are you, like, agreeing with what he did? But I don't agree with what he did. But I understand that motivation as a man to be like, somebody is disrespecting my wife in front of me. And so now I have an option. Like, I can either deal with the obstacle that's causing issues between me and my wife, like this person. I can personify that as the issue, or I can let that slide. And then now I've got to deal with this issue because I didn't stand up and be the man that she was expecting me to be in that moment. And so for some people, they're like, look, I'll take the jail time. Like I'll fire on this person because I don't want to go home and have this argument.
Well, because those kinds of arguments have not ended well in the past.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I may have to pay a fine. And if you're Will Smith, you got that kind of money. Listen, I may have to pay a fine. I may have to go to jail. I got lawyers. I may have to go to jail for a night or something. Like, I'm not tripping. But I'd rather do that than to go home and have this argument with my wife.
Wow.
And which really speaks, and it was something you said, speaks to like the influence a woman has over her husband. And in general, like especially spiritually, that union, that man-woman connection, like that influence that God has already like ordained in that relationship.
Yeah. And I mean, looking at it, because I watched several clips, did my research, as they say on social media, but watching several clips, there is, and you only get a limited view because cameras only shoot where they want you to see things happening. But for just a split second, you see Will does laugh. Everyone in the room's laughing. Jay does not laugh.
Yeah.
CJ does look at Will, and she actually says no. And in that moment, like, what's a husband supposed to do? His wife is like, no, I don't care what everyone else is saying. This isn't funny to me. And looking at that, I was like, whoa, what kind of power? Now that power can be great. That influence can be great and should be.
Yeah.
But just like other fallen, broken women have in the past, and not just in scripture, but in general, women have had influence over wars being fought. Women have had the final say in executions being carried out. We know that women, we carry a power and an influence when we walk into the room, and it has nothing to do with our sexuality. It has everything to do with our ability to have that relationship that says, hey, got something good here.
Yeah.
But listen, when mama's not happy, no one's happy.
That's right. Happy spouse, happy house.
Yes. And I think it was just interesting to me to see like, whoa, Jada, like she switched it up. And really, I would go so far as to say, in my humble, like non-effectual opinion, Jada was just as responsible for what happened to Chris Rock as well.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
She carries this. I don't think it's, oh, well, he did that to defend her honor. I think it's she affected the way that her husband viewed that situation in such a way. She had such an influence over his heart and his mind and his body that he was willing. Now, in the right context, where there's actual physical threat of violence or your safety being threatened, you want that kind of power. You want that. I mean, I will go so far as to say you would want that kind of wrath to be displayed out of love for the person it's defending.
Yeah.
But again, in this situation, in the context of the academy, like all of that stuff.
There was no physical threat to Jada in that.
Right.
There was none of that.
But there was a threat to pride and to like
personality, to confidence. And one of the things that Will said in his speech was about in this industry, it's okay for people to disrespect you and you're supposed to smile and take it. And like he also brought the idea of, well, when you love somebody, you protect them fiercely. Like he brought up all these images.
They're great
images, but again, completely out of context. Like had he been on the street and some dude ran up and tried to like snatch Jada's purse and he like gave dude a quick one, like, yes, that makes sense. Had somebody tried to physically attack them or, break in their house and he had to defend their home.
Right.
That makes sense. Somebody cracks a joke and again, it just goes to the point of like, there's something so broken and so fragile in that relationship that joke was seen as such a threat that physical violence was deemed necessary. And so again, you don't know what people are going through. And so you have to, as a believer, I mean, it's easy for us to be like, he did wrong, she did wrong. And we're not condemning by any means, but just as an observation, there has to be so much pain and so much dysfunction in that situation that caused it to elevate and escalate in that manner.
Yeah. Well, honestly, looking at how words can affect people and how when you have a view of yourself that is, positive and you want to believe that people respect you and that they love you. I mean, look at Saul. When they started shouting and singing about David and how many people he killed compared to how many people Saul killed.
Right.
It was just that simple song, that little melody, that little bit of like those lyrics was just like, I see, I don't like the way that is. And what did he do? He turned on David.
Yeah.
And tried to kill him and pursued him to kill him numerous times.
Yeah.
And so it's not this thing that's like, oh my gosh, like Will Smith, like went crazy and did something no one has ever done. Like, no, this is just human. This is human flesh.
That's right.
At work. And I will say, like, it's immaturity at work. In some ways it is misplaced honor and misplaced a sense of protecting honor that is at work. And so moving like through some of that, I think it's important. We talked about like accountability and how part of the reason things like this happen, because there have been plenty of celebrities that have punched somebody or done something and damaged relationships. And it kind of blows up for a while and then it kind of goes by the wayside. They have a little bit of accountability sometimes according to the law, like if there's legal ramifications. But in this situation, you've got this, Academy Award winning actor who did this before accepting the award and then gave this speech, didn't acknowledge what he did was wrong, still hasn't to this point.
Well, he said he acknowledged that he shouldn't have done it. He apologized to the Academy and he apologized to the other nominees.
Right. But bottom line, this is a prestigious artistic what's it called? Event. This is something that is like it's taken a long time to build it up to what it is. And a lot of people have done they've gone to great lengths to define the ethical and the moral standards of this organization and what they stand for and what they promote. And then you have this happening on the stage of this and the whole world watching. Oh yeah. And I think the question that's like, okay, well now how do we hold this person accountable? And do we hold this person accountable to what we've already said we want to stand by? Because here's a question that I thought about for myself. I was like, man, how would this look different? I know I don't like what if situations because it's just what is. But what if that had been Jerry Seinfeld making the joke and he would have gotten punched by Will Smith? Would that look different?
Yeah, definitely.
Or if any like
shout out to Chris Rock needs to be
seriously
commended. Not only did he take a punch like a pro, he was able to then recover, continue with what he was doing, and then afterwards didn't even press charges. Like there's something about that he understood the pain that Will Smith was going through. Yeah. That he understood the situation of another man and how that call to defend their wife, even if it was misplaced. Yeah. That like Chris Rock, I think he's the MVP. Like he made all-star.
I think that deserves there's a thing that Jesus said one time about
what did he say? Tell us.
Like when somebody strikes you on one cheek, you're supposed to turn them the other one. Now I don't know if Chris Rock was like intentionally like turning his cheek. He was like he like turned away for a second
another one.
And was like said what happened and then smiled and responded. Even though he was being cursed out from the audience, he responded like, "Hey, I'm not."
Yeah, he kept his head. He really did.
It going and kept the show moving. And I was like, now that's grace a little bit. Like I don't know that I don't know that I'd be able to just keep going. And they didn't cut the feed. They just were like, keep going, Chris. It's good. It's good. I think it's good.
You're fine.
And he's like, okay, I guess this is the greatest moment in television history.
And like that's crazy.
And though he was joking and being sarcastic, like that is a great moment for people to witness. Because on one hand, I think there could be the commentary that that's what happens when we let some people come to the Academy Awards. This black tie affair. See, that's why we didn't have some of y'all here a few years ago.
Come on.
But on the other hand, you can say, well, but not everyone behaves this way. Not every human being behaves this way. Right. And so I thought that is an interesting point that like, wow, what composure, what dignity, what self-respect and self-control, what willpower to be able to stand there and be like, you just hit me.
And face the willpower. And get it?
He already faced the willpower.
The power of will. Okay, that was lame.
My goodness, bad joke.
Anyway, so just to kind of land the plane, we just wanted to come and give you guys our take. Not that you care, just kidding. You're watching this, so you obviously care. So thank you for watching. If anything we've said has made you think, or maybe you have something you'd like to add, please comment, please share, please let people know about the NixMyth Podcast. We do episodes every week to talk about the goodness of God and how we can connect you to living truth. Any final thoughts?
I think going forward for like believers and who are going to have these conversations, are going to be on social media and like, what do we say? What do we do? And why does it matter what Christians say? It matters what we say because we are supposed to point people to the truth. We're supposed to be able to say the truth in love and to say, hey, look, there was some behavior that was foolish and immature. And, I can't say that I 100% agree with it, but I understand it. And I do know what it feels like to be humiliated and to feel like I have to lash out in some way. But at the same time, there needs to be accountability, and to have that hope and to speak. And I mean, if you feel so led to pray, like, Lord, let there be accountability. Let other wiser, older actors come around this person and be able to say,
because now there's conflict between people.
Exactly, to say, we need to make this right because the world is watching, the world of people who follow you. You put yourself out there as an influencer, as somebody who wants to bring light and love and truth.
She's got a lot of good stuff. Like Will Smith speaks a lot of biblical truth at times.
Yes, and like has great insights on like TV shows and movies and things. So you put yourself out there, like, where's the accountability now? That relational accountability that needs to come after what I hope will be professional accountability, because that, like, you can't walk into your job and punch your coworker in the face in front of your boss and then just go back to your office like nothing happened.
And I know some of you dream of doing that, but you know you can do it.
Just know you shouldn't be doing it.
You can't do that.
And you can't go to a comedy club and sit there and have them make fun of you and then get mad and rush the stage. Like, we also can't have that example being set. And so I think as Christians, we need to be able to say this wasn't good, but here's what I hope. We have to hold on to that hope.
Yes.
Grieve the bad stuff, but have the hope that, okay, let's see what happens after this. I hope that the right people step up and say what needs to be said.
That's good. Well, hopefully that you've enjoyed the NixMyth Podcast. Hopefully this episode has connected you
to living truth.
Be blessed.